So Chris has been working as an independent artist, and independent is the word for Chris, right, Chris? And he's been successful at this. And so we're going to talk to him today about some of the issues of his career and how he sees it and what he needs and that kind of thing. So, and we will open it to questions. If you have a question, please come to that mic and feel free to ask it. So, Chris, tell me about that, what you've been doing recently. I heard you told me you were doing film scoring. How'd that happen?
It's something I'd always wanted to do. And I got introduced to film and music through music videos. So early on, I was, the record company would hire, a video director, set a budget, you go make a music video. And I was really green about film and stuff like that. But after making a few videos that I thought were way over budget and I wasn't really happy with the results, I started, the last few things that I did, this is like mid-90s or so, I started getting more involved and directing some music videos and kind of storyboarding my own ideas, so to speak. And you mentioned Oh Brother Warthout. By the time that I got a phone call from the makers of that movie, the producers of that film, asking me to read the script from the Coen brothers, I had been hoping to get involved in film, and thinking that in order to do that, I would have to go out and see the Louisiana, Philharmonic Orchestra and learn how to write music for the oboes and the French horns and all of these kinds of instruments. And because my background is blues, which is you're dealing with mostly just the rhythm instruments, and come to find out, my big debut scoring a movie in Hollywood, so to speak, was just doing some Delta blues that I picked up, back in Baton Rouge at my dad's juke joint. It's like no cellos, anything, nothing fancy, no sheet music, just pure, just a pure score of 1930s blues. So you never know. It's good to be prepared, but I was thinking, and I was also not aiming as high as major motion pictures. I was hoping for student film or independent film at a film festival, that type.
Didn't work out, did it?
Well, I'm not complaining.
Yeah. So how did you get the part in Scorsese's film, the blues series that he did?
Well, once you have some success, especially, there's some movies you can be in. You can be in a movie, I won't name names, I just said like a real bad B movie. And, it's a movie, okay, but then, and it might have some success, but then a lot of the real movers and shakers, say in Hollywood, won't see that film. You find yourself in a Coen Brothers film working with, George Clooney and John Turturro and really fine actors like that, film scored by one of Hollywood's, most talented guys, T-Bone Burnett. Then everybody comes to see your film. Steven Spielberg, Scorsese, all these people are fans of each other, so they see each other's film. So if you're in one of those films, or if you have music in a film like that, it's great exposure. So after that, I just simply got another call from Ben Wenders, who directed The Soul of a Man, the film you're referring to. It was produced by Scorsese. And I played Blind Willie Johnson in that film, and it debuted at the Cannes Film Festival and was theatrically released outside of America. In America, it aired on television. And I also got a call from, I didn't get a call actually. I went and visited, I'm real bad with names. I went and visited the director of Ray. And
Taylor Hackford,
right. And had a meeting with him about doing some scoring for the movie Ray, which I got a chance to work with Ray Charles at his studio and did the score there, and got cast as Lowell Folsom, the band leader, for the movie Ray. So, and then you do a movie like that, and other people see that movie, and work begets work,
Mm-hmm. So how did all this affect your music career?
Well, being a blues artist, everybody here probably heard of B.B. King. But I mean, I think this guy has played like every club in the world and on Mars, at least 50, 60
Yeah.
times. I mean, there's no part of the planet he hasn't been to and haven't performed, countless of times. So I think it sped up the thing, whereas a box office movie, the first weekend, several million people are going out to see a movie. And I so happen to be playing characters that do music as well as acting, which is a great combination for me. And you reach millions of people that it would take me, if I had to play the club circuit to do that, it would take me maybe 50 years if I'm lucky, with all the luck in the world to reach that many people that you reach on a weekend with a motion picture. So I think that the motion picture, is kind of one of the highest forms of art that we have in our society right now, and it definitely is a way to reach a lot of people.
Did you have any publishing interest in any of those films? Any songs?
No, because those movies were those films that we just talked about. Now I've done other things. I've done a movie called Animal, which starred Ving Rhames and Terrence Howard. And that movie, I did the whole score, and it was an independent release, and I own the soundtrack to that, and music supervised it, meaning that you choose all the music and things. But in these other movies, Ray, Oh Brother, the Scorsese piece, those were period films, so they were using music from the period, and obviously I'm not from that period, so. Doesn't mean I didn't try to suggest that we could throw something in there.
Are you signed to a major company now?
Not at the moment.
Are you trying to be signed to a major company?
Well, I'm distributed by, I guess you could call it major distribution,
But you have your own label, your own imprint.
Yeah, my label's called 21st Century Blues Records, and I own the label. And I'm distributed through Ryco, which is owned by Warner Brothers, WEA. And digitally, iTunes and all these other places, AOL and just about it. I don't even know all the digital outlets, but worldwide distribution through all those sources as well.
Well, how did you make the jump from growing up in your dad's club in Baton Rouge and being a local musician to being a successful entrepreneur? What was the first step? How did you just went on the road? I mean, how did it work? I
think that's the first step, is just kind of stepping out of the nest, so to speak. I left home as a teenager, moved to Austin, Texas, and kind of got involved with the scene there. And when I was to try to condense a long story to short, I started out like very young, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, playing not only with my dad but with other Louisiana blues musicians like Henry Gray and a lot of guys who aren't even around anymore, and started out playing with those guys and recording with them. I even had a stint where I actually played with the guy I played in Ray. I did a tour with Lowell Folsom as a bag of guitars. And Joe Tex, I used to play. I was about 13 years old, and I did dates with him. And I was just like a little guy, who people would take me on gigs with him. And Joe Tex was really cool because he did all the tricks with the microphone, and then I'd do some tricks and play the guitar with my teeth and all this kind of stuff here. So we had a nice little circus act, But I started very young, and then I started making my own records under my own name. And my first record came out in '86 called The Beginning with our Hooley Records. Well, the original title was It's a Cold Ass World, but they didn't want to name it that, so they named it The Beginning.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And we did a couple of records together, and at that point you were just beginning to release your first record, wasn't that true? Or you
on my label, you mean?
Yeah.
Before you and I got together and did some things, some compilation albums, which were great experiences for me, I might add. And we before that though, my first record came out with our Hooley Records, a little small independent label, probably more famous for guys like Clifton Chenier and Lightning Hopkins, and not a commercial-driven label. And they didn't record me for commercial reasons. Nick Spitzer, who some of you guys might have heard of, he was a folklorist at the Smithsonian Institute at the time in the early 80s, and he was in Louisiana doing some work, and he heard me, met me, and he wrote to Chris Strackwich and said, you know, that he should record me. Not so much record me because I was going to, you know, be an MTV, you know, success or something, but record me in the old-fashioned way as document what I was doing because it was interesting and new, and, you know, kind of culturally he thought, you know, kind of important and should be documented. And that's how, and then Chris Strackwich wrote to me saying if I had enough songs for an album that, you know, that he would like to release it. And I didn't at the time, but I told him yes, and you know, he sent me a check for like $600 and I recorded a record. And you know, and that kind of started my journey. But I think I was probably one of the last, you know, blues artists to get recorded that way, like through a folklorist or just as a documentation. I don't think, you know, well now that doesn't happen anymore. I was probably the last guy to have a folklorist kind of advocate that that what you're doing should be documented. And but since that, I went on to record for, as far as major labels. I signed up, you know, what was then a pretty substantial deal with Warner Brothers in 1990, and ended up working with labels like RCA and a few other major labels. I can't remember them all. Scotty Brothers at one point. And after going through all of that, I decided that I would start my own production company and take a little bit more control of my creative, you know, presentation. And that's how 21st Century Blues came about.
Well,
and that was mid-90s when I first released my first thing.
Do you feel a certain obligation to the tradition of your music? I mean, you mentioned you were the last to be recorded by the folklorist. I mean, does that give you some sort of responsibility? Or are you just trying to make the music that's in your head?
Well, I'm trying to, you know, I mean, I don't try to, you know, I don't pigeonhole myself creatively. I don't think that in those terms. And at the time that all these things happened, I wasn't aware if he was a folklorist or anything. I didn't know anything about, I didn't even know what the Smithsonian was, you know.
You were just doing what you do.
I had never even heard of Holy Records. You know, these are things after I've been around the world a few times and I look back at, you know, my beginnings, I realized that every kid don't grow up in a juke joint, you know. And, you know, every kid isn't out in bars till 3 and 4 in the morning, you know, when they're 12, 13 years old. And those things aren't normal, but that's my background and that's my upbringing. But the other part of it too is that because I started playing with these guys as a young kid, and my name would appear on records as a rhythm guitar player or, you know, a songwriter or a drummer or whatever it might have been on these different sessions. By the time I decided, okay, well, I want to make a record and this is the kind of music I want to do, I was already, you know, people had read liner notes and had already put me in a certain box that I didn't even, you know, realize that there were boxes, you know. But that's why my music was so controversial early on, because I was trying to play the music that I felt in my heart, you know, of hearts, and trying to express myself real honestly and creatively and everything. And then other people have these concepts about what a blues guy from Louisiana should be doing, or the son of a blues man should be doing, or, you know, everybody's already got these expectations that I don't understand these expectations, and I'm not trying to live up to them. And so it was pretty easy to be controversial when you don't fit, you know, you're trying to fit a round hole in a square peg. It's just, you know, there's going to be some friction.
Well, you're the first guy I met that was combining hip hop with the genre of music that you grew up with. How'd that work out for you?
I think it worked artistically. I think it worked. It worked pretty well artistically, but you know, you go down and you chop down all the trees, and then, you know, I'd rather let somebody else chop down those trees and be the pioneer, and I just kind of cruise on through.
Yeah.
in a chauffeur limo or something.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to be. But you know, those roads needed to be paved, and somebody had to do it. So.
Well, you did do it. So, who took care of your business? How did you learn about the business?
I didn't learn about the business as much as, I mean, the guys the guys that nobody sit around and really gave me any music lessons, and you know, nobody sit around with me and told me, you know, this is how you do things. It was more, this is what you don't do. So most of the old blues guys, I mean, even if they had hit records, I mean, they didn't get paid, and they knew every shady trick and all the, you know, and you get a lot of bad advice. You know, a lot of advice that'll just, you can't pay any attention to some of these guys, you know what I mean? Because they'll lead you into all kinds of trouble. But these guys, every hard luck story, I already knew all the hard luck stories, and I already knew all the traps and things that a lot of you know, artists fall into. Now there's some things, obviously, you know, I didn't know about because the business is constantly evolving. But I didn't know what to do as much as what not to do. And just little things like, you know, as far as success in a business, you know, the first thing is that you got to copyright your work. You know, you need to you know, be involved, you know, in your business activities, and not just, you know, you get a lot of advice, well, you just worry about the music and your manager's going to worry about the management. And you can't really do that. You have to, you know, there's certain simple rules where you have to sign your own checks. You have to, you know, try your best to understand that it's more of a business than it is about the music. I mean, the music is such a small percentage of what I do now, and which is kind of unfortunate. You know, that's something I didn't realize until later. But it's really, it's almost all business and very little music these days.
Isn't that interesting, huh?
That's the way it is.
How do you deal with that? I mean, do you just spend like 6 hours a day on your business and then try to write music after that, or play music, or what? How do you balance yourself?
Well, I go weeks and months without picking up an instrument.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I almost never pick up the guitar. I don't know if I should be saying that to everybody, but I mean, my instruments seem to be a computer, you know. I mean, I'm like, you know, that's kind of where everything happens, you know. I mean, a day in the life for me, like today, they gave everybody in New Orleans till the 18th of October to do their taxes. So, you know, I'm on the phone with support from QuickBooks trying to get my network set up to catch back up on my books from last year, which was lost in the flood, and these kinds of things, and trying to hire an accountant in the new town that I live in. And it's a never-ending administrative situation, which I complain about it and I don't like it, but I have to do it because, you know, if you don't do it, then somebody else will do it for you, and believe me, somebody else will do it for you. So it's important to, I mean, it's a business, you know, so you have to prepare, and especially now that I run a record label, and you know, I just can't worry about, okay, I made a good record. Well, I'm the president of the label, you know. I got to come up with a marketing plan. I got to set budgets, and I have to hire, you know, independent publicists and radio promoters, and I have to make sure that my sales people are out there, you know, getting it in stores, and that the ads are bought and designed, and in the magazines, and all that kind of stuff, you know, which is a whole lot of fun, you know what I mean?
You have a MySpace page?
I do. I have one, but I didn't put it up. A fan, I think, did it. I don't even know how to do MySpace, you know.
We can hook you up.
Yeah, I think I got some MySpaces out there, but I don't know who put them up, and I don't administer them, and I don't know nothing about that part of it. I mean, I used to. I mean, I know how to design a website, you know. I have the software, you know. I got these heavily powered Macs, and I used to be very involved, and I made it a point that a website was kind of an extension of the artist, meaning that artists, I'm talking light years ago, you know, like 5 years ago, I mean, which is light years in internet time, but it's like artists, I felt that my website should be an extension of me, meaning that I should have a personal involvement in it, and that you know, your design and all your whole layout was kind of like doing an album cover, where you used to have the big album covers and stuff, and internet is kind of an extension of that. You know, that's the way I looked at it. So I took it upon myself to be involved, to understand it, to design it as much as I could, and be hands-on with it, answer every email. And then when you start getting more success and stuff, you just can't do it. I find that I can't really answer. Very rarely do I answer fan email, and you know, because I have to deal with so many, you know, things on the business end as far as email go and stuff. And I can't monitor. I can't really keep up. You know, I got videos on, I think what they call YouTube or whatever. But believe me, like next year, MySpace will be history. You know, there'll be something else. So I don't get too locked into the technology, because I understand now that it's going to constantly evolve, and as soon as one thing becomes very once the corporate companies buy it up, it's kind of already on the way out at that point. You know, they kind of buy it to get it out of the way and do away with it as competition or whatever, and then they move up to the next thing and gobble that up. The one thing that I think is going to be here for a while is iTunes, because iTunes is it's not just some mavericks, you know, in their garage who came up with an idea. Well, they did start that way, but I mean, this is a company that they're at the cutting edge of not only everything that's happening in movies, you know, but iPods and the way music is distributed and the whole thing. So I mean, it's not just one website or software idea that somebody came up with. There's a whole, you know, support thing around that, and so you know, that's something that you have to wrestle with. There was a lot of bands and a lot of artists who said that they weren't going to sell their music on iTunes, like Metallica and other people. The Beatles, and now they have to join the party. You know,
they might just. You read about the Beatles recently suing EMI. They're suing their record company after, what, 40 years?
And for what? I haven't heard.
For not paying royalties. So if the Beatles can't get paid, then what hope do the rest of us have?
There you go.
In this room, there are young musicians who are actually performing and playing and trying to have a career, and probably are determined to have it. What advice would you offer to them?
Well, how many people are planning to pursue this as musicians?
I'll get it, Chris. Any musicians in the audience?
And how many plan to pursue music and other careers like management or the technical side? And I guess the musicians. How many musicians / plan to be musician incorporated out there? Yeah, I think that I would say the first thing that, you know, I think chapter 1 in your career, you know, music career, should be define your goals and decide what it is that you want out of it, what you want to accomplish, and then try to find, you know, the road to accomplish that goal. If your goal is to be, you know, rich and famous, then that might be a whole different path than to be a great musician, you know, because it seems to me these days unfortunately the more you know, seems to me these days that being a musician who have studied all the classic music, and, you know, somebody who is brilliant on their instrument, I don't think the music business really have business as we know it today don't have much use for a musician that is so deep, you know, musically. And so I think that first thing that you have to do is define your goals, what you want out of it. If you want to be a great musician and make some great music, and not necessarily be famous or, you know, these other things that come with it, you know, then that's attainable. You know, you can control that. You know, you can dedicate yourself. You can find resources and find inspiration and things to achieve those goals. But if you want to be, you know, quote unquote famous, then that's a whole nother thing, which someone like myself, you know, probably couldn't advise you on, you know, all these different aspects. But, you know, you have to seek advice, you know, from people who do what it is you're setting out to try to achieve. If you want to make money and be, if success to you is defined by, you know, by some kind of if financial success is important, meaning like, I use two examples, like Britney Spears, you know, she's from around these parts. And Britney Spears, you know, have made more money than she can probably count in the music business. And, but, you know, people don't hold her in high regard as a musician, as an artist. And, you know, and it's in the eye of the beholder, really, or the ear of the beholder. But that's one thing that you can, you know, you can be very, you know, if you're going to be in the business, you know, you're going to have to figure out what's selling, what's hot, what's trendy, jump on those trends, whether you're in management or whether you're an artist, you know, and you have to ride that wave until that wave peters out. And, you know, it's just different ways to go about that. And if you're going to be a musician who, you know, I'll use a jazz musician as an example, you know, you might be very well respected among your peers, but, you know, what that might be, 35 people or something, you know. So it's hard to make a living doing that. You end up maybe playing it in, you know, as background music in restaurants and stuff, you know, and you're a very accomplished musician or a singer or whatever. And so if you're happy, if that's the kind of music you want to do, then that is success for you, is that you found a way to make a living, you know, doing what it is that you love to do. And that's really, really successful, being successful, as opposed to being a marketing person, a business person, running some label, a major label, or a real successful label financially, and your whole day is spent not with music, but with reports and sound scans and data and all these kinds of things. It's like you might as well be selling shoes or any other kind of product, you know, because you don't even have time to listen to music if you pursue that. But, you know, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I'm just saying that the two don't naturally go together.
Do you, I mean, you talk about the importance of goals. What's your goal? And how do you expect to get there? How do you take yourself to the next level?
Well, these days, I mean, I guess my first years, you know, I didn't even see it as a business. And I was total anti, you know, I had like dreadlocks, you know, down my butt when they were like, I was the only guy going through airports getting frisked.
Come to think of it, you were.
They used to frisk me, man. They see me coming a mile away. And I've been taking off my shoes and stripping at airports for 20 years, you know. I'm just happy to see everybody else doing it, you know. So, but you know, and things about when you're being independent, you know, meaning that you go to a bank and you try to get a loan to invest in your business or invest in yourself in some kind of way. And they, you know, some years ago, you know, that was very unusual. Whereas now, if you work from home, it's actually legitimate now. You know, there's all kinds of banking institutions where when they say, well, you know, where do you work? You say, you know, I work for myself and I work in my pajamas all day, you know, from home. That's totally legitimate, you know. I mean, they'll say, well, how much do you need? And, you know, you just do this such and such and such and such. So, I mean, you know, it's a lot easier now as far as the support mechanisms to invest in your business or to get yourself off the ground. And even if you're a musician, you got to have an instrument. You got to have somewhere to rehearse. You got to have somewhere to create. You got to have equipment to do these things. You got to have a van or whatever to go out and play gigs. You got to, you know, invest in marketing materials or some computer or software. I mean, you need capital. You need startup money. You need an investor or somebody to believe in you, or you need to be able to go to a bank and say, hey, this is what I do, and I need, you know, a little bit of money to get started, or a credit card or something. And that is something that's come a long, long way. And so it's doable now. And then the tools are there where before you had to leave Louisiana, leave your small town or whatever, and try to go to Los Angeles and New York to get somebody to work at a record label to hear you perform. And then maybe they would decide to spend, a few $100,000 on you to record you in a professional recording studio. And now, Pro Tools means that you can make recordings, in your bedroom that sound just as good as what you, or better than what you hear on the radio. So the tools are there, and the business has changed so much that it's a lot more democratic in some ways. So getting started, but the other thing too is that there's so much clutter. There's so much. It's not as simple as it used to be. You make a record, you try to get on the radio, you get it in a record store, and you go on tour. Now there's cell phones, and there's so many different avenues to exploit music, and so many different ways. And the one way that everybody knew as retail stores, that's dying out. And so what people have to do is maximize their thing. One of the things that a lot of hip hop artists do is that they realize that it costs so much money to get played on the radio, it costs so much money to make a record, that they can't make any money from their records. So then they go and they try to get endorsement deals with tennis shoe companies, or they sell soft drinks, or they'll license their name, try to make a name and then license the brand to sell bubble gum or anything they can sell, because there's no money in the music, because what they're paying to market themselves and what they're getting is, the return is here, and what is being spent is up here. And so you have to find other ways to try to get revenue, and that's what's happening in the music business. Even if you're a small artist, you're trying to sell records in record stores, you're selling them on digital downloads, you're selling ringtones, you're trying to license things to movies, you're trying to license things to documentaries, independent film, you're trying to get your music heard on MySpace, YouTube, and anything else that somebody might come out with that is supposed to be the next hot trend or whatever. There's so many different things there till it's just difficult to. It's still all these things there's video games, for music, all these things, and it's still just 24 hours in a day. There's not more hours in a day, and people used to be able to sit back and actually listen to an album from start to finish. And when the last time anybody's done that?
Yeah, really.
So there's so many choices and so much clutter out there, till it means you have to be even more focused now, and not distracted by the bright lights or the advertisements for, hey, this is the way to do it. Come this way, walk down this street here. Opportunity is waiting for you down. You get an email saying just sign up for this and do. There's so much clutter till you really have to just take a deep breath, take a step back, and get focused and decide what you want to do. And then you have to follow that. And what you want to do might seem like the wildest. Like for me, I'll use myself as an example. Coming from my background of blues, hey man, if you want to, be a movie star or sell millions of records, that's the last thing anybody would advise you to do, is that. But it just so happens that when the Hollywood directors wanted something authentic, they needed a guy who can act and who can do this music thing. Well, I was like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. How many young black guys from my generation even know how to know anything about the blues? So there was a short list, So I was the odd guy, but then all of a sudden I was the right guy, because I had a skill that very few people had, So it ended up being a hindrance to me early on, but then it ended up creating opportunities.
Do you book yourself?
Oh man, no.
Who books you?
I'm booked by a company called BMA, Blue Mountain Artists. I have a publicist, full-time publicist, out of Atlanta. My booking agency out of, I think it's South Carolina. My radio promotion guy, David Fleischman, he's been around for years and used to.
David. Yeah.
David? Yeah, he's out of Memphis, and and that's kind of my little team right there from a label.
Do you try to put out a record a year, or do you have a schedule, or whenever it strikes you, or what?
This year, I was just lucky to get a record out. My latest record's called Rise, and it was about the aftermath of Katrina. And I was just lucky to get that record released because, you know, me and everyone else it was so chaotic trying to just figure out where you're going to, you know, lay your head or whatever. So, but no, I mean, for me, I mean, my sales team is in Brooklyn. They're called Virtual Label. They help me they go between me and the distributor as far as making sure the records are in the stores and all this kinds of stuff here. So it's a big job because, you know, America is such a big country, and nobody needs to be popular in America from coast to coast. You know, it's not necessary. It hardly ever happens. A lot of East Coast artists, hip hop artists, sell most of their records on the East Coast, and they don't sell records on the West Coast, and vice versa. And I mean, if you travel around the world, you go to France, there's artists who are like superstars in France. You know, they're royalty in France. There's Italian artists who sing in Italian. You go there, and those guys are, you know, they play arenas, you know, and they're huge artists. And nobody ever heard of them in America, and nobody ever heard of them in Germany, you know. But they're huge in Italy, you know. And there's English bands who just can't make it in America, but, you know, you would swear they were the Beatles if you were in Leicester Square. So, you know, you don't have to be popular all over the world. You just, because almost no one is. You just need like your hometown, you know, your state, your region. All you need to do is just just treat America like a country, like each state like its own country, and just say these are the states that, you know, I'm going to try to do something in. Because if you think America as a whole, it's just nobody does that. You know, nobody really is coast to coast. You know.
Do you sell or produce other artists besides yourself?
I did, and then my last distributor, I had to do that because running a label, a lot of times the larger distributors don't want to work with a label that's only going to release one record a year, you know, because it's just not, they make their money in volume. So if you release 100 records and you sell, you know, one copy of each, you sold 100 records, you know. If you release one record and you sell 2 copies, well, it still sold more than all those, but you just sold 2 copies. So, you know, they go by volume. So my first distribution situation, I signed other bands because to make sure each quarter that I had some kind of release, you know, for the distributor, and to keep people working that work with me. And but that was a real strain because when it came time for me to go out and tour, or go and do movies, or pursue other things, the office kept calling, you know. So the situation that I'm in now, I have salespeople in between me and the distributor, and they have these virtual companies that are being created now because a lot of artists are doing it themselves. So what they need is like somebody between them and the major distributor. And the person in between them, they might have, you know, 15 artists, a dozen artists or so, which allow the single artist labels to work through them and then out to the major distributor. Mm-hmm. And it takes the burden off the artist. It means you can make your record, send it to your distributor, and you can go out and tour and do your promotion or do what you have to do. And you don't have to have a record every other week or every quarter or whatever. And that situation isn't good for me because it's taking a lot of pressure off as far as volume. But will I, you know, release other artists' records? I don't say no, but I would say at the time that I'm not in the business of doing that at the moment because I'm already spread too thin.
Do you sell merchandise at your gigs?
Yeah, a lot of records these days are being sold at concerts and, you know, on stage, because a lot of people like to meet the artists and get the autograph. And, you know, people in the blues genre, we've been doing that for a long time, and I think that the more popular artists are starting to catch up to that.
So how do you manage all of your time and all the different things at once?
That's a great question. It's so hard. It's so difficult. You get very little sleep. You know, my 9 to 5, you get up early, and my 9 to 5 is doing. I try to get the office stuff done, and try to get out of there, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock or so, if I can, and then I step away, and then later that evening I might go back and try to be creative. Most days I'm too tired to do anything, and that's why I say I go weeks sometime without picking up a guitar or anything like that. But right now I'm in, if I want a record out by July of next year, it's time for me to start writing that record, to start, thinking about the concepts of it, what story I want to tell, or, how to get that started. And so for me right now, it means I need to go to the movies, go, find interesting things to read, or just be more observant, because I have to try to fall in love with music again, and that's the hardest thing. It's like, I have to fall in love with music, seems like every time lately that I have to go and record, because it's just background noise to you while you're working in the office, or you're driving, or you're doing whatever. And then you got to fall in love. For me, I have to fall, passionately in love with music all over again to spark the creativity, And it's really hard. Hopefully, I get to the point where I don't have to go to the office and I can let somebody else run my label. I'm just not large enough as a record label to hire someone that with experience full time to actually run the label. So I have people that help with different tasks, but I'm looking forward to being able to just turn that over to someone else. Then I can, spend all night in the studio and sleep all day like I used to.
Like, as an artist, say you make something and it would be good to release it or good to do it from a business perspective, but you feel like you shouldn't do it from an artist perspective, or vice versa. How do you deal with that kind of conflict?
Yeah, some good questions. See, I'm fearless as an artist. At least I used to be, and I'm a little older now, so I'm not. I don't like, there's no point in me pretending that I'm like, on the cutting edge or anything. I mean, I did pioneer a new style of blues, which was, meant that I couldn't get any work, for a long time because people didn't dig what I was doing. But at that time I wasn't recording for my own label either. I was recording for the people, so they saw me as a bit of a problem. But now that I run my own label, honestly, I have to take into consideration what I'm going to release, and my left brain, my right brain have to kind of wrestle with each other a little bit to come up with something that's going to be exciting or adventurous for me and interesting for me as an artist, and hopefully for my fans. But hopefully there has to be a market for it too. I have to if I'm going to come up with some wild music and something that people haven't heard, or something adventurous, or something, I'm going to combine some things that I know is going to be a marketing issue. Then I also have to turn around and come up with the marketing. When everybody look at you with a blank look, well, who do we sell this to? You have to come up with the marketing plan too. So I don't think you can do one without the other if you running your own label. If you're an artist who's doing your own business, you have to, you not only have to create it, but then you have to have an idea of how to present it as well.
So do you find that your responsibilities as a marketer has changed the way that you create music?
I don't come up with a marketing concept and then go create the music.
No.
But once I create the music, I have to come up with a marketing concept if the music is outside of the norm, of what my fans or what the distributor is expecting. If I come up and do something, totally different, then I have to, somebody, if not me, I have to find somebody, or somebody have to come up with a way to explain. Because most people, let's face it, I'm not a person who can tell you why one painting is worth, $10 million and one is worth 10. That's not my thing. I don't, and a lot of people can't tell you why one piece of music is great and the other isn't. So I think, yeah, you know, if you are recording for a major label, well, they got hundreds of people to do those things for you. But if you are an independent artist, or if you're doing things independently, then you got to be, like I said, you know, it's more business than it is music, unfortunately.
Well, if there were people here that wanted to help you or work for you or do things for you, what would you need done? What could you give? What could you give up?
Oh well, that's plenty. I mean,
So you take
some of the things that we're talking about. I mean, the main thing though is that, you know, I mean, I've worked with, you know, people that have done interns with me before, and I've worked with people before, but you know, I'm not a control freak per se, but when I record my albums, I do play all the instruments most times, and I am in the studio, you know, a lot. I spend a lot of time, you know, working alone. But as far as jobs, as far as my record label goes, I mean, somebody in marketing and in sales, those are the kind of things that you always need, you know, some fresh people that are excited about music, that are excited about what you're doing, and that can convey that to other people, you know, through the phone lines, you know, through creating newsletters and things like that to get the word out, on press releases and all kinds of things like that. You know, somebody that can teach me and keep me informed about the latest trends with what's the next MySpace and all that kind of stuff. You know, IT, you know, people. I mean, there's a lot of ways somebody could assist us or help us do what we do.
Where's your company? Where are you located now?
We used to be off of Magazine Street, but since Katrina, we moved to Prairieville, Louisiana. But when I named other people that work with us, they work, you know, in different cities and stuff. So we have like a server, and we have a network that a person who works with us just basically log in, and you know, and start doing business like that.
Well, if somebody wanted to contact you about that, can they do that?
Sure. My website and contact information is at christhomasking.com.
That's easy enough.
Yeah.
Music. What did you do as far as when you approach a film score within the rules of what you do for a film score and retaining the blues style?
Well, the director dictates what the score is going to be. I did a movie called Animal, which was a contemporary film, and that film, you know, was a pretty violent film, and they wanted some real edgy, you know, industrial, you know, sounding music. So I got out some loops and things that had that real, you know, crunchy, you know, thumping industrial sound, and I basically played, you know, some slide dobro stuff over that, you know, not dobro, but slide lap steel guitar, you know, some real wicked, you know, try to make it sound as wicked as I could for the different scenes. And what you do, you know, they'll send you, if they got a rough cut of the film, they'll send you a rough cut of it, and you'll pull that up on your computer, you know, and you'll watch it, and you try to put things in there that need to be in there. Things that, and a lot of, I hate to be I hope people don't typecast me as a film composer as to, oh, I need some blues, let me call this guy. That's good to have a signature sound or something that you do that people know they can call you and get that from you. That's great. But, you know, I feel that, you know, I could score like a Harry Potter film or the next Batman or something if they gave me an opportunity. And I look for those opportunities. And, you know, so, and the thing about Terrence, you know, Terrence seems to, you know, a lot of times directors they find their team, so to speak, and they usually stick with them. They send them a photographer, you know, you know, all their assistants. Terrence is part of the Spike Lee team, so whenever Spike Lee goes to work, Terrence goes to work, and that's great. But you know, Terrence haven't gotten a lot of opportunities to do things outside of the niche that he's known for, and I know he's eager to do that. So I hope I don't get typecast, but the director dictates exactly what it's going to be, unless the director comes to you and say, we need something like this, or can you come up with something this, that, or the other. But that's not a, in film as a composer, there's not a lot of, usually there's not a lot of creativity there. It's not a, unless you've written a film or something, it's really not a lot of creativity. You're hired to do, to create somebody else's vision. A couple of things about the music business that I would warn you about. I would tell you the first thing about the music business is that there's no money in it. And so you can't get into the music business you shouldn't get into the music business as a musical artist, as a musician, to get wealthy, because it doesn't happen. You know, you have a better shot of winning the lottery as having a hit record. It's one thing to have a hit record even. You might have a hit record, but, you know, then it's difficult to actually get paid.
This is true.
And so it's not that you're not talented or that you won't have a record all over the radio, and that, you know, people won't want to have your music or dance to your music. But every time you guys download a download, you know, without paying for it, every time that a record is played on the radio, the artist, do you guys know that the person singing don't get paid when it's played on the radio? Do you know that the person, you know, the songwriter gets paid, but not the person singing the song? In other words, I give you an example, like say a Whitney Houston, she doesn't write songs, but when she sings a song and it was all over the radio, the songwriters and publishers got paid for that, but the artist doesn't get paid for that. And so unless you're the songwriter, the producer, you know, own the work, you know, all this kind of stuff here, and then take care of the business side of it to make sure that when it does generate some funds, it comes to you. And that's almost impossible to do, because if you're not with a major label, you won't be on the radio. So it's like a catch-22 there. So, you know, don't get into the music business to you know, for wealth, because it's very rare that'll happen. But get into the music business because you love music. As far as musicians go, get into it because you love music. On the business side of it, I would say anybody who's pursuing it as a business, it is exactly that. It's a business. You have to be on time. You have to be knowledgeable, and you have to at the end of the year, keep your bookkeeping straight, pay your taxes, do all those things that businesses do, report your income. Always report your income to the IRS. And I'm very serious about it. If you understand business, you form an LLC, and you do it don't do it under your Social Security name, you know, number. You do it as a business. You form an entity other than yourself. You might form a fictional name as an artist, as a band, and you need to establish an entity and a relationship with banking and investors and the business people as a business entity, and not as Joe Blow, Social Security numbers, such and such and such. And if you do that, and the reason why you want to report your taxes is because you can also deduct them. Every time you buy some guitar strings, every time you take some music lessons, your education that you're getting, you know, all these things are deductible. Your gas to rehearsal, you know, your vehicle, you know. So you want to tell the government that, yes, I made some money, but at the same time you want to tell them I didn't make any money because I had all these expenses, and that's true. That's the way it goes. So you don't have to try to hide what you're earning. You need to report it, because that's your resume. I mean, if somebody, like last year, we were fortunate enough to get an investor in my label. My label was almost about to fold up. An investor came and invested in my business. Before he invested, he wanted to know how my business was doing. So I had to, send him a profit and loss statement, and he had to see what we had done, and with his investment, what we were going to do with that. So it's a business, and if I didn't have a good record keeping and things like that, then I never would have gotten to the point where I could get other people involved and get investors, and I never would get major distribution from a label if I didn't take care of business, because everything has to be accounted for, and unfortunately, that's the cold hard truth. And anybody who gets started in the business, I'll just say this: a guy told me some years ago, the best advice I think I've ever gotten was a guy that said, it's not the money you make in the business, it's what you do with the money that you make. Because we got lots of New Orleans artists from Mystical and other people that have made a lot of money in the business, and then they don't have anything to show for it, or they in prison, or this, that, and other thing. And so it's not that you can't, it's not that you don't have the talent or you won't be successful, but what you do with the little money that you do get dictates whether or not you're going to be successful as in a financial sense. You know, if you get the money and you invest it well and you take care of your business, you're going to be successful, and you don't even have to be the most talented person. The person who take care of their business, they're going to make it, and their music might not be, it might be total crap, but you know, I mean, but they got their business together. So that's usually the bands that succeed, like the Dave Matthews bands and people like that. They had a good grassroots business network of people working with them, and you can take something like that and do wonders with it. And then you have other talented artists who die of drug overdoses, or, you know, I saw a documentary on Marvin Gaye the other night. I mean, Marvin Gaye, what a sad story, you know, for somebody that was so talented. Sly Stone, Jimi Hendrix, you name it, you know. Nobody is doubting talent, but you really, to be successful in the business, you really have to take care of the business. And that's not exciting and all that, and it's not sexy, but you know, you have to do that.
Well, let's give Chris a big round of applause. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.